Hey everyone, welcome back to the Art2Life podcast. I'm always especially excited to have a guest come on that has been incredibly influential in my life. Today, I have the great honor of talking with Martha Beck. Martha Beck is a Harvard-trained sociologist, PhD, New York Times bestselling author. She's published 9 and about to 10 nonfiction books, dozens and dozens of articles. Her most recent book, The Way of Integrity, Finding the Path to Your True Self, became an instant New York Times bestseller. It was selected for the Oprah Book Club. She's known as the best known life coach in America. She's spoken to audiences around the world on stages, the Oprah Show, Good Morning America. And it's just an honor to be here. And by the way, you guys, she's also an artist. And I mean, it's just you couldn't have a more relevant guest for all of you who love this, who are my audience. And you're based in
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, right? So anyway, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. It's really awesome.
Such an honor to be here. And so I'm so delighted to meet you and to talk about art more. This is the first time I've written a book where I really, really allowed my passion for art to sneak in. And it's about anxiety. It's called Beyond Anxiety. And what I found is that when you allow your creativity to flourish and when you get into the making of things, you don't have to be a great artist or anything, but it actually shuts off your anxiety and allows you to help to solve your own problems, your life problems, the world's problems creatively. And you go into like a flow state and it's awesome. Okay, that's the book. Now let's talk.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. So that's really interesting. Well, there was in your little pamphlet that I was looking at, I think a really cool question that I'm going to start with this thing around anxiety and fear. I work with a lot of people around uncertainty. I think in many ways, people are drawn to making art so they can learn this thing around uncertainty and around fear and moving past it. But I love how you describe in the book the difference between anxiety and fear. And I kind of just want to start there because I think that's so good. So maybe let's dive in there.
So fear is a wonderful gift that is meant to keep us safe. And the way it's supposed to function, the way it functions in pretty much all animals, is that when there is an unfamiliar thing, stimulus that is detected by your senses, it examines the thing. And if it looks like it's creating a clear and present danger to your health and well-being, it will immediately blast you with a bunch of hormones that make you take action. So you could fight, you could flee, you could fall on the floor and pretend to be dead. There are a number of things your nervous system will do in that situation. If the danger then goes away, it returns you to your normal, relaxed, and happy state within 90 seconds. That's how it works in every animal except us. We take fear, which is that boom, 90 seconds of pure adrenaline, usually with a very clear consciousness, and things seem to slow down. I mean, it's incredibly. I interviewed a bunch of people who'd been in life-threatening situations, and they all talked about how calm it was, how everything went still.
Yeah.
There was one woman who was hit by a car. She was hit by another car, and as her car flipped in the air, she grabbed her cell phone out of the air so that she would have it. She came to rest upside down with her cell phone. So that's fear. And it's like a magic thing we have. But there is a glitch in the human brain. And I think it's just there because the outer surface of the brain where we do our logic and reasoning and verbal stuff is very recently evolved. And it's like a computer program full of bugs. And one of the bugs in there is that when we see something alarming, we become afraid. If the thing is not dangerous, we tell ourselves a story about how it could be dangerous or something else dangerous could be there. And by the way, we're all going to die. And then it plays that story, and the more primitive parts of the brain react as if that story is reality. So I'm thinking about car accidents. Oh, that would be horrible. That would be horrible. If I'm picturing it vividly, my amygdala, this primitive part of the brain, thinks I am in a car accident. And so it pumps out all that adrenaline, all that cortisol. It puts you at peak alert and it never stops. And so fear is like being shot out of a cannon. Boom. Anxiety is like being haunted. You
Yeah.
can't see what you're afraid of. It's always there. You don't know what to do about it. Nothing makes it go away. And it just literally eats you alive with stress hormones. And
It,
it's rising like a rocket all over the world. And many, many people have it.
yeah. I mean, the simple way that I've always thought of it is that your brain can't tell the difference between something that's really dangerous and something that's imagined,
Precisely.
and
Exactly. Yeah.
and yeah, and I see this, and we can be terrified to make a mark on a picture, or right, to do something that's expressive of ourselves. I mean, there is so much anxiety that people have to overcome in
Right.
order to feel free. And if they don't feel free, their art's not going to work, by the way. But just
Yeah.
to
Oh, believe
to
me, I
feel
know.
how you said, like, how can wouldn't it be amazing to walk around without anxiety? And I know this is the purpose of the book, right?
Yeah.
But the interesting part, though, that I thought was that, if you remedy this anxiety, and I want to dive into some of the ways to do this, that creativity plays a part in this, and purpose comes into it. And I love that through line to those, all of which I'm completely involved in, but I've never really started from the place of anxiety. So maybe walk
Right.
us through this, because I think especially for the creative artists listening, they're gonna love this.
Okay, cool. So I was researching the brain, the anatomy of anxiety. And what they basically say is that there is this primitive part, the amygdala, and then there's the storytelling part, and it gets stuck in a loop where the part that's scaring the amygdala makes the amygdala more scared, which scares the part. And all of this is happening in the left hemisphere of the brain. Well, a few years before doing this research, I taught a summer course on creativity, just general creativity. And I had looked at the brain science of creativity. And I noticed, first of all, there's a ton of research that shows even a tiny bit of anxiety will shut down all creativity, right?
Yes.
They can have people do a creative problem solving puzzle, and they could be having fun and they're doing well. And then if they say to them, get it right and we'll give you $10,
Yeah. Yeah.
or get it right and you'll win.
Yeah.
All of this stuff on the left hemisphere of the brain, it's judgmental, it's comparative, it's full of rules and regulations. And this is a useful part of the brain, but one brain scientist calls it a wonderful servant and a terrible master.
Um,
Creativity, on the other side, there is a mirroring set of structures. But so what causes anxiety on the left side of the brain causes creativity, or enacts creativity on the right side of the brain, which, by the way, includes whatever the left hemisphere. So the left hemisphere, when it's in an anxiety spiral, does not believe anything but its own story. But if you get
right.
into the whole brain, the right side of the brain includes everything. So it says to anxiety, I hear what you're saying, but come be present in this moment. Ground into your senses. There's nothing threatening in the room right now. So education scientists say the brain asks three questions. Am I safe? Okay, good. Am I
Yes.
loved? And you can love yourself enough to know that you're loved. And the next question it says is, what can I learn? And it also says, what can I make? Because if you think about it, it's a
Wow.
strong evolutionary benefit to be afraid of things that are scary. But it's equally important to explore, investigate, and create things that help keep us safe and fascinated and interested. So I thought, anxiety shuts down creativity. We know that. What if they toggle? What if when one is on, the other is off? So I
Oh.
started experimenting on myself. I started doing things that I knew would activate the right side of my brain, the creativity part. And sure enough, my anxiety flatlined. I started testing it on clients and then on groups of people online, have them give me an anxiety rating for wherever they were, then have them do mental exercises that pull on the right hemisphere, cause it to come into action, and then say, what's your anxiety level now? And it would come up on the chat, 0, 0, 0, 0.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, creativity is the answer to anxiety. It
Yeah.
doesn't, It doesn't, you have to bring down your anxiety by calming yourself. But once you're calm, if you start to make things and express yourself, you leave anxiety so far in your rearview mirror, you won't even remember what it felt like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, you can't actually, if you're art making, if you're making something, you can't make something and be full of anxiety. Like they're kind of you're absolutely right. It definitely toggles that just being present and dropping into the wonder of what's happening in front of you,
Yeah.
and the creativity and just the curiosity, all those kind of above the line emotions and
Yeah.
conditions that flood you. It is absolutely like it's the portal into you, into the best version of you, the free version.
Yeah, it's what we evolved to experience. We evolved to live outside in nature with all five senses working, solving problems all the time. And you will always find if you go to people anywhere in the world, they will be making something. They will be
Yeah.
making music. My partner, my wife, recently started making beaded bracelets. She's a very busy woman. She has no time. And she's like, I don't know why and I was like, do it, go with it.
Yeah.
And we talked about how if you they just dug up a 5,300-year-old tomb in or a temple in Peru that was under a garbage dump. And you know what they found in there? Bracelets. And if you went to an uncontacted tribe in the Amazon, you know what? They'd probably have bracelets.
Okay.
No one has ever needed a bracelet, and everyone makes them.
Yeah, right.
We evolved to be creative, and then we live right now in a society that pushes creativity way to the outside and frontlines money and work
Yeah.
and analysis and logic, and nothing else counts. It's like the left side of the brain is on this reign of terror. That's why anxiety is rising like a skyrocket all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think of and this is something that I'm challenged with. I just did this call yesterday. It's called the Kitchen Table Art Project. And basically, we gather up all kinds of people from all different aspects of life and we invite them into a art making experience. And it's literally the project is, and I mean, this holds to your data. They come in, I ask them how they're feeling. How are you guys doing? And, people are coming in late and they're just
Right.
stressed out and the holidays are here. And I walked them through this process, this practice I have. It's called Bloom, but basically it's a 5-step thing, but it's so relevant to what we're talking about. But we start with taking them out of their head and connecting to how they're feeling
Mhm,
and
mhm.
basically opening to the feeling and
Yes.
what that is, and then making from there. So
Yeah.
we've left this, which is all the anxiety and the analytics, and am I better? And I'm not an artist, and all that stuff
Yeah.
that's up
All
there.
that.
And they're just going with, I just want to feel, spaciousness. And
Yeah.
then make art from there,
Yeah.
choose colors that fit more. And of course,
Mhm.
it's completely intuitive. But for
Sure.
some people, this feels more spacious. And for some people, so there's no right or wrong once you get
Never.
down here. And
Yeah.
that's when the amazing art comes. And by the end of the hour call, everyone's they feel more connected, they feel more alive. They feel calm. There's a humor, there's
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah. Yeah,
Amazing.
that's what you're activating. You are actually dropping into the body, but the part of the brain that does that is the right hemisphere. It's
Yeah.
responsible for telling how we move in space and for synthesizing, like putting elements together. But yeah, any like physically present sensation. I have a dear friend, Jill Bolte Taylor, who was a Harvard neuroanatomist, and she had a massive left hemisphere stroke while she was at Harvard. She was 37, and she was able to watch it come on because she was this brain scientist. And she was in the shower, and she had this terrible headache. She was trying to make it go away. And her left hemisphere was turning on and off as the blood pumped, and she had an aneurysm and it pumped into her brain. But the left perceptions went on and then went off, went on and off. And she looked at her hand on the tiles of the shower, And when the left hemisphere was on, she saw a hand and tiles. When it shut down, she saw two intermingled clouds of energy. And
Wow.
she felt at one with everything. And she felt she was in a state of bliss and awe. And then she'd come back to the left hemisphere and go, oh my God, I'm having a stroke. I've got to get in touch with someone. But before she'd get to the phone, she'd be in the intermingled fields. And she said there was no border to herself. She was as big as the universe. And she rebuilt the left side of her brain. But you know what she does a lot now? She makes limestone sculptures. She makes stained glass
Oh,
windows. She paints every day. She lives on a boat half the year.
yeah.
So yeah, this connection between the cure for anxiety and the genesis of our creativity is, I think, it's not just joyful and perfect in itself and what we evolved to do. It's the only way we're going to fix the problems we've created,
Yes.
personally and as a group.
Yes. Yes. That we can think outside of ourselves more. We're
Mhm.
more open, more possible. Now, going another step with this, right? Like, so we can start feeling more into ourselves, and but this ultimately kind of like drifts over to purpose, and this is something that I'm often talking about, and I'm always thinking about working on, and I love that connection. So how does that, how do you describe, like purpose? It's a natural tendency
Yeah,
that you describe, that purpose
yeah,
is naturally evolving. And I don't know if everyone really, I think people have this perception that, well, some people, they know what they want, but I'm just kind of flailing out
yeah,
here. Tell me about this. This is such a great, I love the natural, it's part of our operating system
yeah.
to have purpose or to
Yeah,
find it.
you'd think that people, I'm a life coach, a title I don't love, but
Yeah.
people come to me, you'd think they'd have all kinds of, relationship problems, career problems, and they do. But the number one problem from the very poor to the very rich is I don't have a sense of purpose. So I've been thinking about
Mm.
this for a long time. I've been doing this coaching a long time. If you think about purpose, another word for purpose is use. Like, what's the purpose of this? What's the use of it? What does it do?
Oh,
And I didn't have a sense of purpose. I felt utterly useless for the first 30 years of my life and couldn't really see a point to like sticking around on the planet except that my family wouldn't like it if I died. I really was not a cheerful
mm.
person. And I have found doing this research, I mean, other things too, but this more than anything else, the stuff I did with this particular project, what I realized is when you allow yourself to go into that nonverbal, awestruck, fascinated
Mhm.
place, you will naturally go toward what interests you. And as you go deeper into what interests you, you'll get interested in solving little problems. And it's not like you have to learn the rules of art, but it's like, how do I express what I'm feeling in music
Yeah.
and in sandwiches, whatever? And you think, oh, okay, and you get to the point where you're pushing your abilities, like your technical abilities to create, to convey a sense of what you're experiencing.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, you go into flow. And flow is the highest state of joy the human brain can feel. It's like you're flooded with dopamine and serotonin. And I was in the middle of that one day and I thought, oh, this is why it's okay to be alive. This is the use of
Wow.
life. This is
Yeah.
my life's purpose, not this project I'm working on. That's something the left hemisphere would be about. What are you leaving as a legacy? I don't care. I'll be dead.
Mhm.
But what, how many moments of rapture can I feel?
Mm.
And how can I maximize the impact of that in a positive way around me while I'm here?
Yes. Yeah. Discernment is at the root of journey and path. And
Hmm.
I was amazed because we were talking, you guys, earlier before we came on, how we both do the same work, right?
Yeah.
What we're doing at Art2Life, helping people find themselves through art, and you're helping people in every aspect of their life, improve every aspect of their lives. And and so this idea that it begins by choosing. Like, so when we make art, and I know you can relate to this because you're making art, and that it seems fairly innocent, but you're going to choose things, and you want to, you get better at choosing, but you
Yeah.
choose the color you like. You choose to paint a duck as opposed to a seagull,
Yeah.
and if you start paying attention to the choosing
Yeah.
in art, the art gets more personal, which is
Right.
so
Right.
cool, right? Because you got a
Yeah.
trail of things behind. When you start, you're just like, I don't know. I went to a birthday party and they asked me to decorate the cake. It was kind of fun. So then I went to a cake, whatever. But then you get better at the choosing, and you can see a pattern behind you of all the things you've made.
Oh, I
And
love
this,
that.
right? And so then this starts to give you your pattern of your desires, of your choosing.
I
And
love it.
Martha, what was incredible for me that blew my mind was people who do this, they get better at this choosing because it's this hobby thing, they're having fun, but then they build this discernment muscle, gets stronger, and it starts, things happen in their lives, they start choosing things in their
Yeah.
life better, and
Yeah.
all of it lifts it.
Mhm.
Every, you start living more
Yeah.
like yourself than ever before.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, I'll give you my entire, like, I can boil down my whole method of life coaching into a very short lesson, which is just goes to what you said earlier about the body. I tell people, okay, think about something horrible that happened to you. Now notice how that made your body feel. Okay. Now think about the best moment of your life. Notice how that makes your body feel. Okay, great. Those are the extremes on the happy meter. And no feeling at all is zero. So now think about going to work tomorrow. How does your body feel? Plus 10, minus 10, plus 5,
uh,
0. And okay, if it feels good, do it. Do more of it. If it feels
yes,
bad, do less of it. And they're like, what? Wait, go back. Like, it's
yes, yes.
not rocket science, but we are trained against it because
And
society needs us to make money.
people fight against this. This is the fast path to making amazing, authentic art, by the
Ah,
way. And I tell you, people just, it's all the choosing, and it's letting go of just, you've got to be connected to yourself. You can't be looking at a David Hockney painting and trying to do your painting kind of like that's up here. But
yeah,
it really is quite simple, to just follow those breadcrumbs of what you love.
yeah.
That's so cool. What a great way to, and that's so applicable, right? That's such a way to, I love the measurement of it.
Uh-huh.
That you can be, that's a 7, this is a 9, and just
Yeah,
don't do that one. But why
right.
is it so hard? Why can't we just do it? I mean, we just,
Because we are trained really aggressively not to. I mean, anxiety is at an all-time high, and it's the most common mental health disorder. I had, by the way, horrible anxiety for decades, so I've been there. But one of the reasons it's called anxiety is so bad right now is that it takes little people who are choosing what's best for them because they know what feels good and they know what feels bad, and it teaches them, don't do what feels good, do what we tell you. So in the
mm,
in the 60s, NASA commissioned a study to find creative geniuses so they could hire them. And they tested all these adults, and about 2% of them got into the genius category. And then after a while, some people thought, let's test kids. So they gave the same test to a bunch of 4 and 5 year olds. 98% of them tested as creative geniuses. And yeah,
yeah.
and I
Oh,
think the other
interesting.
2% were just having a bad day. I
Yeah.
We are natural creative geniuses, and the researchers blame the school system for knocking it out of us. But I think it's the
Uh,
whole culture. It's the whole
yeah.
mechanized, post-industrial obsession with grabbing stuff and having money. All of that, again, is in that left hemisphere part of our consciousness. And it's the system around us. So
Yeah.
it's in our brains. But that part of human consciousness is what made the rooms we're sitting in and told us to go to the jobs where we will make the most
Right.
money,
Yeah.
not necessarily for
And
us, but for other people.
and the constant, scrolling in the quiet moments, to be scrolling and being inundated with rating systems of and who's being successful, and the front porch of these amazing lives, and it's not true. It's not a
Yeah.
full picture, and we have this distortion that I think is
Yeah.
causing tremendous anxiety.
Oh, huge distortions. It's that story that the left side of the brain tells to frighten itself. And one of the things I do
Uh,
to shift anxiety really quickly is say, name three things you love with each of your senses, like three things you love to taste, three things you love to feel, three things you love to hear, all five senses. Now, imagine a scenario where you're experiencing all of those things at once. So you're sitting on a warm beach with the
uh,
sand between your toes. You can hear the ocean. You can hear children laughing. You can hear bird song. You're eating Belgian chocolate and having like a fabulous mojito. Your love is giving you a massage, and all of that's happening at once. Now go there deeply. And they cannot sustain anxiety. And then they say, but I just made that up. And then I
oh,
say,
yeah.
you just made up the bad stuff too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Oh,
Nothing in
that's
this
beautiful.
world's going
Yeah.
to hurt you. What
Yes.
do you really think you're? Shortly after a recent political event, I was not feeling well. And I got up to meditate. It happened in America, folks. You may not have heard of it. And I got up, this was just a couple of months ago, and I sat down to meditate. And I was like, in myself, I was like, how can I be expected to be calm under these circumstances? And inside me, another voice said, you mean your bedroom?
Yes. Right. Right.
That's all I
Yeah.
had around me. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not project an image of beauty? Why not discern, as you said, what would make you happiest and most contented in this moment and choose that as your projection? Why not?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's so good that, I love this idea that if you feel something, and you just, for that person, she had anxiety, or he had anxiety, and then you're imagining how you're on the beach and the wind in your hair and that music is playing and you're sipping a mojito, whatever that those senses, your brain can't tell the difference, so you
Exactly.
actually start feeling different. and
Yeah.
and this is the way in, right? So, but what we feel, right, is, and I'm curious about this. This is what I sort of how I frame it, but how we feel in the day actually then extends to what we see in our life,
Yes. Oh,
right? And
absolutely.
then
Absolutely.
what we see is what we attract.
Exactly.
And oh my God, this little hack you introduced changes outcomes, changes your life, all the things. What do you think about that? Right?
Yeah, I thought that the whole new age, manifest a Ferrari by thinking
Yeah, that's
about it. I get
no, it's not. Yeah.
people try to put me in that box, and I'm just like, no, I'm not into that. And yet, I said my last book was about integrity. And I just was like, for years, I've been doing this thing called integrity cleansing, where for a year or 6 years or whatever, I won't tell any lies, not with my actions, not with my words, not
Wow.
at all, not to myself, not to anyone else. And I got so tired of people talking to me about the magical attraction of things. And I was like, I'm just going to get this down to data, man. We're going to talk
Yeah.
the truth. Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's subjective anyway, so that it doesn't even exist really, but I'm going to live in integrity. Get all your fairy stories away. So I went on another integrity cleanse, and my God, everything I thought of would come flying at me from 12 directions. I couldn't stop it from happening. I'd be out in the forest. This happened to me one day, thinking, I wish I had a camera trap to put on that tree. And then I hear someone yelling, Martha, it's a friend coming to visit from another state who's been out in the woods looking for me and has brought me a camera trap as a gift.
Yeah.
Really came
Wow.
in as I sat in the trees thinking I'd like a camera trap. Bam, here's a camera trap. Okay, one more story. So there was a drought. I was worried, very worried. I had drought anxiety, which is not fun. Do you live in California?
Uh-huh.
Ooh, it's bad. It's bad. So one day I just said, I can't handle this anymore. I just want someone who knows something about the weather to just tell me what to think. This is driving me crazy. So I never watched television, but that day my partner was watching a football game. And at the end I said, could we watch the news? I kind of want to see the weather. And she said, oh, we got to go to another channel for the best weather. So she switches the channel, and there on the TV is my face. And I was like, oh, yeah. The local news came out like 3 months ago and did an interview with me because they were starved for content. I mean, desperate. And this happened to be the day they were going to run the story. And they said, so come back after the thing, after the commercial. So they came back, and then the anchor woman says, well, she's tossing to the weatherman, and she says, Dave, here, Martha really she's really worried about the drought. She says it's like watching someone die of thirst in front of her. So what would you say to her? And the weatherman comes up out of the TV on my wall, and he says, well, I probably shouldn't be giving instructions to a life coach. But Martha, stop worrying about the drought. Are you, what?
Wow. Yeah.
The magic works.
Yeah.
You're in absolute integrity. And when you get in absolute integrity, you can't lie to yourself and say there's something scary in the room when there's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you get beyond anxiety, which is the title of this book, yeah, the magic of the
Yeah.
world becomes
Yeah.
very apparent. Yeah.
And I think, yes, there's like, I imagined a Mercedes and then I won one, and that's not really it. But I sort of see it like, if we feel, let's say, if we can feel more, you know, fortunate, for example,
Yeah.
and then you feel this way, and then maybe some obstacle comes in your life, but you can see it in a way that is like it's a blessing in a way, right? We can always see things as black or white. We can
Yeah.
always see things as hard or not. And I think that's also, for one person, an opportunity is a disaster. So it's interesting, right? Like, it doesn't have to look like those magical things,
Oh,
but
yeah.
they happen. I call it tailwind
Oh,
when
cool.
you start being in integrity, and it's a real thing for artists. Just FYI, like, it's a hard path making art because no one else does it, and it's your thing, and there's no roadmap, and you're putting things out in the world that it's your heart, and
Mhm.
but what you do get is you get this little tailwind of possible opportunities that come your way, all kinds of little blessings that happen when
Yes.
and I actually talk about it in terms of, it's a way to course correct, because when it stops, you're kind of off. You're off a little
Yeah.
bit.
What
So
I
I
always
don't
say is
know.
we've got a really good, wonderful ally who never deserts us, and its name is suffering. And the moment we start to suffer, we can know that we are caught in some kind of illusion. And most of the illusions that cause our suffering come from anxiety. That's after I wrote The Way of
Mhm.
Integrity, I was like, I'm done. That's all I have to say about self-help, because if you're living in integrity, your life's going to work, and then
Wow.
you'll die, and that'll be good too. But people kept coming up to me afterwards and saying, I'm living in integrity, but I am terrified all the time, terrified. And I'd say, oh, because to me, I'd really scrutinized all my frightening thoughts, and they didn't hold up under scrutiny. But people say, no, there are real problems there, and I need to be afraid of them. And so I wrote this book to help ease those people out of their fear. And one thing I would say to anyone out there who's thinking, but I'm not creative and I can't do this, the first step is being incredibly kind to the part of you that's scared. This is
Wow.
about fighting or mocking or excluding the part of you that's frightened. You have to be kind to it, and
Mm,
very, very gentle with
I
it.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing. You can't take someone who's having an anxiety attack and say, just draw. It'll make you feel so good. No, calm them down first. The first art is the art of self-calming.
Hmm.
And you know what? We all instinctively know how to do this. So if you found a freezing puppy on your doorstep and it was terrified, how would you approach it if you wanted
Yeah.
to help it?
you pick it up and you hold it close and,
Do you shout at it? Do you run up and tell it it's got to cheer up?
yeah, right.
Do you give it medication? No. You get kind. And one of the things that I loved in my research was finding out that Chris Voss, he was the FBI's lead hostage negotiator for years. Fascinating guy. His book is called Never Split the Difference. And he talks about what you do in a terrorist situation when people are about to kill the hostages. You go really kind and really soft, and you bring your energy down, and you listen, and you have empathy. You demonstrate empathy for the person.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the way you calm down anybody's amygdala, and everything with a spine has an amygdala. So the
Yeah.
way you calm down a bird or a dog or a horse is the same way with your own fear, gently, calmly. And people tell me things like, I'm going to bring down my anxiety. I want to end it. I want it to go away. And
Yeah.
if I was coaching you and I said, I'm going to bring you down, I'm going to end you, I want you to go away, it would not help with your anxiety would not go down.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God.
So
That's,
small. Do you have
yeah,
a process for calming people so that they can move into creativity?
absolutely. It's this bloom process of feeling whatever they're feeling and really connecting to that and then opening to that even
Yes.
more. Like it's
Yeah.
not just like, okay, I kind of feel silly today, no, but like, and you can go there, it's that you can just really drop into it and really feel that,
Yeah.
open to that. And the third sort of step is not now we're going to make something. We play. We literally
Yes.
we start, there's no rules. We just do whatever we feel that relates to this. That how we feel is the answer. And we play in this environment, right? With
Yeah.
curiosity and wonder, do what delights. And
Absolutely.
and there's no
Absolutely.
rules and there's no plans. And then and we stay there. And this is in terms of, I coach so many artists and this is the part that's sort of skipped over because they want to get the result, right? They want to make the thing. But this play part is I
Everything.
coach it to where people are playing in their art making process. It's an
Yes.
important part. Just give yourself half an hour to just experiment and
Yeah.
play and try things. And what will happen, just like people find their purpose on their way to integrity, people will really something will pop, something they'll
Yeah.
know, like, oh, I love that part. And,
Yes.
and all
Yes.
of a sudden, oh, that reminds me of this. And then they enter the create stage. And that's when,
Oh,
all things you just start you're starting to choose what it is you want in and what it is you want out. And that can take, an hour or it can take 100 hours.
yeah.
But that's the creation process, whether
I
you're writing a
love
book
that.
or whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly how I write. I just put down any dumb crap I think. Meh. I read through it, and there'll be like half a sentence where I'm like, oh, that's not terrible. I kind of like that.
Yeah,
Never, ever set out to be a writer. Never in a million years would I have thought that.
really.
Mm. It was just something I love to read, and I could kind of get good grades in anything as long as they had a written essay. um, but I was so relaxed with it because I was never going to be a writer. So it didn't matter. It was just
Yeah.
convince people of something. That's fine. All right. And yeah, and then I ended up, and a lot of people who are afraid who get writer's block is the same thing. I think here's a really good question that I want to ask you. A lot of people have been interviewing me, but they don't have your skill set and your background. I love this. Um, how do you sustain that state of play, or can you sustain that state of play throughout an ordinary day? If you got beamed into someone else's life and you had to go to some job as an insurance adjuster or something,
Yes, right.
and you're like, this is a game I used to play. I'd look at somebody and I think, what would I do if I had his life? How would I deal with that? So you've got your insurance adjuster life. How do you find play and how do you get into it from there?
Yes. And you're going to love this answer because I'm going to use your research and what you share in the book around the sanity quilt. So,
Ah,
um, the sanity quilt, and basically, why don't you share with us what the sanity quilt is,
Okay.
and then I'll answer the question because it's a beautiful concept. But I have one of my own, but I want to hear
Okay.
your hit on this. It's so good, by the
Oh,
way.
thank you. Crazy quilting is a real thing. Most quilts are made with a pattern that where you have to cut it out and lay it out very, very carefully, and it's really demanding art. But sometimes a quilter will just have a bunch of beautiful fabric that they don't know what to do with, and they create something called a crazy quilt because it doesn't have a pattern. They just pick their favorite piece of fabric, put it at the center, then pick their next favorite or one that seems to go next to it, and they sew that together. And then they sew another one, and they sort of spiral outward until the quilt is big enough to cut and trim and finish. And they call that a crazy quilt. I don't think that's crazy. I think that going by established patterns for everything you ever do in your life and doing jobs you hate, and that's crazy. Vanity quilt is where you put what you love at the center of your life, of your attention, and then you just keep attaching other things you love and filling more and more of your time with it until you've got something to
This
fill.
amazing tapestry that doesn't follow any necessary rules, but it fits you. So the answer to the how do you keep in the play mode, which really is a higher frequency, is a lighthearted overflow state, an energy state, right? That you feel more optimistic than negative, that you
Yeah.
feel your best version of yourself, all of that. Keeping all of that going, how do we do that? Well, it relates to this quilt idea because one of the things that is sort of central to my teaching is that what brings us alive is all the things that we love to do. It's different. You might love yoga and I might like knitting or whatever, but when we involve ourselves in things that we love and enjoy, those things make us feel alive. And often the things that we do, like if we have a soul sucking job and we're under fluorescent lights and we go to Hawaii, what makes it so amazing is because it's so different for us. We this is so different than my normal job where I'm under fluorescent light and I got to stay in a cubicle, but now I'm in Hawaii. And so, yes, we love Hawaii, but what our brain and our body and what I've learned, and I apply this to all the principles of art making, by the way, is the thing that change is the difference between things, right? Like this gray color looks
Uh-huh.
especially amazing next to this really saturated color. But
Uh-huh.
this saturated color next to this color, these are not the best pairing because they're kind of saying the same things.
Oh,
Human beings are hardwired for differences.
huh.
And so this quilt idea, this wayfinding idea it's about placement. So if I'm doing the job where I'm an insurance adjuster and I'm doing that for 6 hours, it's really cool. And I love to make art, to place in that day for 15 minutes. Instead of doing lunch all day, I'll take 15 minutes of that and do art. And
Hmm.
then, and I'll listen to some music on the easy part of my day that I love this kind of music.
Yeah.
And you start creating that tapestry of differences. It's
Yeah.
it's touching, it's the touch points. And you can make an amazing life. You can make an amazing experience where you're not just in flow, but what it's overflow state where
Yeah.
you have energy and you're in it in the flow, but you have so much energy that now you got extra. You have
Yeah.
extra to solve problems. You have extra to give to people,
Yeah.
right? Like this is the state that like I do a lot, and I know how to do this because I just want to do a lot of stuff, but I gotta
Yeah.
stay in this overstate. I can't. I'm not very. If I don't get to go on and do a run, 3 times a week, I'm really not very good. So it's interesting, right? It's this differences. That tapestry that we create, even if parts of our lives are not that fulfilling, but we can juice them by having contrast mixed in.
Oh, that's amazing. And you also
Yeah.
just touched on something that's so important, and that is that we live mostly in artificial environments, and we evolved for nature, so that you just put in a little bit about going out for a run.
Yes.
One of my friends wrote a book called The Last American Man about a guy who he was like a woodsman, and he said, he lived out in the woods, and he said, you people in the cities, you get up in a box, you get in a box on wheels, you drive to a box, you sit in front of a box in a box, then you get in your box, you drive home to your box, you get in another box, and you watch a box until you go to sleep. He
Oh
said,
my God.
you live in box world. My world is all circles. The horizon, the cycle of the
Uh,
seasons, the stones around my campfire, my tent, everything is in a circle. And he said that is making you insane. And I think that's true. But I also think, I like a version that is, and Jill Bolte Taylor would tell you this too, the whole brain, not switching from left hemisphere to right hemisphere, but switching to just the whole nervous system. The brain is not
mhm.
separated from the body. It's just
Right,
one
right.
whole nervous system. And when we do that, we can, like, I'm looking out the window at these beautiful trees and they lift me, but I'm also in a room that keeps me warm. And that is artificial, but it's beautiful and it lifts me. So you end up, when I'm thinking about your tax adjuster life, who goes out for a run, who does art, you've got both.
Yes,
As long as
yes,
you love both, keep them,
yes.
you know?
Yes. And so here's the connection. You're going to love this because I love that you're an artist, but in order to make something amazing in art, if you love, a shape, or if you want to make that person, part of the art that whatever you want to express, you can make it more powerful by putting what it's not around it, whether it's a bright saturated color using a dull saturated color, or a
Right,
large
right, right.
figure next to a small figure. And so then the average viewer comes along and they just look at your work, and the transmission is really powerful.
Oh, I love
So
that.
you're using this idea of differences in the art making, but you also want to feel these differences when you're making the art. You want to feel playful. You also want to feel pretty scared sometimes, right? You
Yeah,
want to feel all the feelings
yeah,
and express all of you. It's not that it's bad to have fear. And it's kind of amazing when you have a painting, for example, historic, like amazing paintings where, oh my God, this it's a brilliant artist, but she is right on the edge and she's terrifying. And then there's
yeah,
confidence in there. Like those look so good together. There's confidence and there's vulnerability, and you put them together, and it's like it's the perfect swan dives off the low board, right? We
wow.
only love it when it's like the game is like it's the Olympics and he's
Yeah,
failed 3 times and then he nails it. It's like, oh
yeah.
my God.
Oh, I am so going to go and buy all your stuff online. I love it
But
so
that's how
much.
you make art. So you are, so this is, and we all can understand that. And that's why people can make so much progress, right?
Yeah,
Because and so there are no rules in art making, just in life, but there's principles,
yeah,
ideas that we can use that apply to whatever we want to make, whether it's a book, whether it's a play, a restaurant, a relationship. Oh
yep,
my
yep.
God, the stuff I'm learning about relationships, I'm in an amazing one. And oh my God, it's all the same. It's all the same content. I just
Yeah.
think it's so
And
cool.
and you realize, as you said, things that may look bad may actually be good. And one of my favorite spiritual teachers, Byron Katie, says, things aren't happening to you, they're happening for you.
Yes.
So for all the people out there who have anxiety, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And the reason it's for you is that it will not let you rest until you find your way to what Nicholas is saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
It's
will
just
just
keeps
be
bugging you,
at
you know?
you. Yeah.
Yes.
And then you will find, like Jill, when her brain shut, or the left side of her brain shut down, oh my God, I'm in a place of awe and wonder and beauty and presence. And this is why I'm here. This is my purpose. Not something I would write down on a piece of paper as a mission statement, but
Yeah. Yes.
presence,
Right. Right.
presence and playfulness and the contrast of opposites in this moment and then this moment and then this moment. That's your purpose.
Yes. To experience this time,
Yeah.
to fully feel and become you and feel everything. And that's a powerful thing. One of the challenges a lot of artists have is that it's like, I'm so self-indulgent, I'm just sitting over here, the world's falling apart,
Lies.
and I'm just making my art. And it's just such a bad frame. It's so powerful for people to learn how to become this bigger version and to
Yeah.
really grow. And what happens when people see that,
Yeah.
it's very magnetic, and
Well,
it's has a huge impact in the world.
yeah, it does. And this is why I go back. I mean, once you get out of anxiety and into integrity, then you
Mm,
literally realize that pushing your art away and saying I'm being self-indulgent is a lie. That is the
yeah.
lie our culture tells to people because we live in a culture that wants us to be part of a machine for producing material wealth, which, by the way, is also frying the earth alive, like it's destroying ecosystems. And if we're going to fix that, the only way we're going to do it is from a place of creativity, because you do not create solutions
Yeah.
from a place of panic.
Right.
So it's the people who are putting creativity front and center. Like,
Yep.
I really believe it's my moral duty to take creativity, whatever form it takes for me. Usually it's the form of visual arts, and put it at the center of my day. And everything else gets pushed to the margins. And let me
Yes.
tell you, you become countercultural. If you decide
Yes.
to
It's
not have
radical.
anxiety, you will be countercultural, and people will think, my wife calls it feeling good by looking weird. And people will think you are weird. The very fact that I have a wife is very weird to a lot of people. Sorry, I respectfully do not care.
Yes. Yes. Right. Right.
Because,
Artists are going to save the world. I'm telling you,
oh, absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
and what that means is people in integrity will save the world, because you
Yes.
can't be in integrity and blow up people and invade and all the things.
And when people say, now there are real problems, you're saying we shouldn't be afraid. And I say, well, if you were in a horrible accident and you broke many bones and bruised and gashed many vital organs, and surgeons came in to try to save you, would you want them to be anxious and panicky? Or would you want them to be calmly fascinated and
Yeah.
creative and curious and confident and courageous? Yeah, I think that's the world we've got, and we're not helping it
Uh-huh.
by being panicky and
Hmm.
afraid. It's, but
How do you I'm curious about risk, right? Because risk is, that's fire and that's juice, and we
yeah,
want to take risks, and we have to learn to do them. And sometimes it work, like how, because that can create anxiety, but there's healthy risk, right? There's
yeah,
one of the essential human needs is uncertainty, right? We
yeah,
need this, but it's always a trick, right? To talk about risk.
always. And
Yeah.
I believe in my very first self-help book, which I wrote approximately 400 years ago, was called Finding Your Own North Star.
I
And the
love
premise
that
is,
book, and I was going to mention it because
you,
that's where I discovered you, and I love that book. It
you're
was
so kind.
2002 was when it came out, but
Oh, thank you.
I love that book.
I just have this belief that we're all born like migratory birds with a sense of due north. We have compasses in our
Mm.
bodies, in our emotions, in our mind, in every part of ourselves. And if we cannot see which way is north around us, because usually there's too much clamor, there's too much light pollution from the artificial lights, we can't find the North Star.
Yeah, yeah,
We have to go inward and find the compasses. And what you're doing is exactly what I do with clients. Get into the body, begin to discern what feels good and what feels bad. And that is the way you navigate through even the most perilous situations. If you're following that, but you have to be incredibly attentive to it, especially these days. And that will take you straight into your creativity, and
yes,
then into play, and then into purpose, and then into connection with everything and everyone.
yes,
And
into
you're
oneness, right?
in a wild ride, and yet so you're risking everything, and yet inwardly there's no sense of risk, because you've got the compass, the North Star is there. At first it's terrifying, later it becomes terrifying relatively. So Liz Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, is one of my best friends. And every now and then I have a wild hair to do something. I think I should leave. I think I'm supposed to go live in the forest for a while. She's like, she reminds me, Marty, we are people who jump off cliffs. We will not do anything if we don't feel like it's right. But if we feel like it's right, we will run right off the edge of a cliff. Go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so fun to start having like people like you, discovering people like you who are like, yeah, you get
Yeah.
it, man. You get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not taking a risk is the only risk that will really devastate your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel in many ways that people are drawn to art to learn about uncertainty and risk taking. I mean, I'll be teaching a retreat and they've paid for this retreat. We're in Morocco and there's everyone's making art and they're using just a little bit of paint, and I'm like, you guys, the paint's included, like it's instead of using 20 cents worth of paint, use 79 cents worth of paint. And the boards are like $1. So the only risk is about $1.35. I know you're terrified. I mean, literally, people are leaving crying because it's so hard. But oh my God, you can learn to be free and you can let things happen. And when you let go, when you stop white knuckling it, that's when amazing, miraculous breakthroughs occur in your life and your art.
I've got to send some people your way because I started or sort of around the politics thing. I started a community online where people could just go and be free of judgment and hang out and whatever.
Wow.
It was not meant to have anything connected to art. And there are like 300-ish people in there now. And over the 3 months that it has existed, every person in there has started painting, drawing, doing poetry, writing music, dancing, like creating beautiful gardens. It's as if a tide of artistic creativity is rising. And I'm a sociologist by training, so I know that that's a self-selected group, but there was nothing in there that told them to be artists. But what you're doing is going to catch people because there is a rising tide of artistic sensibility.
Yes.
And I mean all art, gardening, play,
Yes. Yes.
making mud pies, whatever. But people like you who have really dug in and spent your whole life learning how to connect with the creative process, holy crap, that is a lifeline. So
Yeah.
anybody out there, I'm going to
No.
sign up for a whole bunch of your stuff because
Oh God.
I
Oh,
want
you're
to
the
be,
sweetest.
it's
Yeah,
going to make
no,
my
it's
life better.
exciting. And all we're really doing, you especially, you're just reminding people of what they already know. And that's why the transformation can happen so quick. There's nothing particularly clever about it, but it's just they know it's right. They can feel it, right? They have a barometer to check.
Yeah.
Do I feel great here? Or is this a yes or is this a no? Is this a 7 or a 4? You'll die. I did this thing for a long time. I created a checklist and I did it in this thing called Airtable. It's like Excel on steroids. And
Uh-huh.
I broke it. I broke kind of life down into like body, which is like health, and art, which is like expression and these different aspects of our life, like gratitude, and there's about 25, and laughter is in one of them. And every
Oh,
day I went through in my day, and I have a place where I could say today was pretty good because I had like I laughed, right? Like I had 8, and then I had a 2, and then if I felt really vital, that was there, and if I could feel gratitude, and then it added up the scores, and so it was anywhere from like 115 was kind of a pretty like below the line day, but then
uh-huh.
like 187, they were amazing days because I laughed, because I had connection is another one, right? Like today, this is
Yes.
an amazing day because I'm connecting with you. Like we need that. But
Right.
I put numbers to everything to sort of try to get my head around
Love it.
how do we create these days? Because if we can make amazing days, we can make incredible weeks and then months and then years, and right.
What you're talking about is making a sanity quilt life. Like that's
Yes.
what it is. And
Yes.
another thing that happens, people are going, yes, but I can't do ART. I have a JOB. I hear that one a lot. Here's the thing, and I talk about this in the book too. When people start coming from the place you're talking about, and you're literally making your life your ultimate work of art. You're designing it, you're judging it, you're taking this out, you're putting that in, you're modifying this. And as you make it more and more true to you, you're going to emanate more and more of
Yes.
what human joy and passion really are. And that creates what I call an economic ecosystem. I never set out to do coaching. People just started hiring me. I didn't really think I was a writer. People just started paying me. That's how I've made my living. And I wasn't trying. I was trying to be happy.
Yeah.
And as a side effect, people started paying me for stuff that I really love to do. And that will
Yes.
happen to more and more people. I really, really believe that.
Yes, you're in that frequency, and you have the energy and the attraction. All of that is,
It
you
works.
talk about wayfinding, and I just want to touch upon this because this
Yeah.
too. So if you scrolled a couple of years ago, the beginning of this podcast, the thing that interests me, and it's a bit, I've deviated quite a lot of it, but I pretty young, like out of school, I got completely lost and I didn't know what the hell I was doing and kind of depressed. And I was trying to make art and no one wanted it. And so I just left. I just ran away and I took a year off and I traveled around the world. And
Mm,
I got my dad gave me a around the world airplane ticket. You could get those back
wow.
then. So you just had to go in one direction. It was on a French airline. But so
Ah,
I spent time in, Tahiti and India and all these places. And I was just taking my time and I didn't have a map. I didn't have a plan. I just did what I
I love that.
wanted. It's just I found my way as I go. And
Yes.
and that became the model
Yep.
for my art, for my life. And it's that's what you're saying. That's this wayfinding thing. And this when I
Yeah.
read about your quilt, and it's like, oh, I'm just cobbling it together, but
Yeah.
it's right for you. And anybody can do this. And it's just a beautiful way to be. And it doesn't work so well, it turns out, if you go on a trip and you're this way and you've got planners with you. It's
Mhm.
it's a little it's people like to know where they're going,
I know they
every
get
single
very
day.
anxious,
But
very
it
anxious
doesn't work
about.
out that way. It's going to be raining in Paris when you were planning on going to the Louvre, and now you got to go to someplace else. But I love this
The
wayfinding
wayfinding,
idea.
like in any given moment, the thing is, change is so rapid right now, socioeconomically, all over the world. Technology.
Yes, yes,
So way back when I was in graduate school, getting my doctorate in sociology, I looked at the pace of change and the rate of acceleration. And I was helping write this book for a Harvard Business School professor named John Cotter, and it was called The New Rules. And it was about how business would be more fluid in the future. This was in the 80s. And then I looked at it and I went, oh my God, everything's going to get so fluid that there will be no more planning. There will be no more terrain. We are going to be on the open seas and we're going to have to navigate by the stars and by like the birds flying overhead, the way the wayfinders did in the ancient Polynesian
yeah,
islands. And that metaphor really helps me now because things have gotten wild, haven't they?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my God, so good. Well, listen, as at closing here, I just, maybe, for our listeners, like there, obviously this is something to shoot for, something to move towards, but what is like the one thing maybe somebody could be like focusing on to like that would lead to the next thing and just sort of like calm things,
Yeah.
what they might do, I just love these kind of like actionable things because it's so helpful.
The most powerful thing, honestly, the thing that's brought me out of my worst fears and into my best days is something I call kind internal self-talk. And the acronym
Oh,
for that is KISSed. Kind
oh,
internal self-talk is just if you're like scared and telling yourself a scary story, or you're angry at yourself, or you think you're no good, and that all those tapes are running, they can still run, but that you need to introduce a different thing. Kind internal self-talk. Say to yourself, you're okay. I will let
hmm,
you off the hook. You get to feel everything you're feeling. You're going to be all right. In this moment, we're fine. I've got you. You've lived through a lot and you'll get through. I trust you. I believe in you. Just like that. Just like keep it running, keep it running, keep it running. And if you can do that, everything else will happen. I promise.
um, Martha, thank you so much for sharing this afternoon with us.
uh,
So
my
good.
absolute pleasure. I've had a
So fun.
blast. I
Yes.
really look forward to our paths crossing again. And
Absolutely, absolutely. And for those of you listening, check the show notes. Martha's book coming out. It comes out in January, Beyond Anxiety. There'll be links to that. You could get on the mailing list. I probably can pre-order.
yes, pre-order
right?
at Amazon. That's a good place.
Okay, awesome. Again, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Keep up the wonderful work, and I'll see you around.
Perfect.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.